when I was about 2 or 3 years of age. It's amazing that children remember things. This is my baby dress. I was about 2 or 3 years old. And I remember this day, my mother had washed me up, and she would always push my hair back in a ponytail with a 1-inch satin bow. And she set me out on the front steps and she told me, don't move. But what did Linda do? She got up off the steps, went down around the side, picked up the hose, turned it on, and with a full force, she got wet. I ran in the house. My mother said, what did you do? I was soaking wet. She took me upstairs. And I'm sharing this for a reason, because children remember. I remember sitting on my mother's lap in the bathroom where there were black and white towels. She was sitting on the tub, cleaning me up, and my sister was sitting on the toilet seat with the seat down, laughing at me because I didn't listen. So I just want to welcome you. My name is Linda Brown, and I'm the host today for ATKN, and where we are seated in heavenly places. And today I'm interviewing Tina Martin, my prayer sister from the Ecclesia Prayer Group. And we're going to be talking about some very interesting things. I'm going to let Tina introduce herself. Tina, thank you for joining us. And I really look forward to sharing this time with you and talking about, I found out through talking with you, we have a lot in common. We have a lot of threads that are connecting. So if you would, could you please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, Linda. Thank you. I'm happy to be with you. My name is Tina Martin, and I live in San Bernardino County, California. I've lived here since I was in 7th grade, 12 years old. And I was born in Los Angeles County, California, and also lived in Riverside County, California. My father was a contractor, so we did move around a lot. I am an only child, and there was a lot of instability that did happen in my life because of my dad being a contractor with regards to moving around.
Tell me, I found out in talking with you that we share a very common bond in genealogy. I've been doing genealogy for 40 years, and I tell you, you find out all kinds of secrets, those that are known and those that aren't. And you shared some very interesting details. Can you tell me a little bit about both your mother and father's side? You have some very interesting details of who is in your bloodline.
Okay, well, I'll start with my father's side. Robert Martin, he is from Canada. I'll start with him because he is the simplest one. My grandmother, his mom, is a second-generation Canadian. Her mother came directly from England. And my grandfather, his father, was 100% Scottish, and he was a first-generation Canadian directly from Scotland. As far as my mother's side, she is a Newman. The Newman family is from North Carolina area. I've gone back as far as 1756 and the genealogy. There is a couple of people that are kind of interesting. I touched on it, but didn't want to get too far into that bloodline yet, or, that genealogy line yet. Andrew Jackson is part of our family. The Jackson family is, a family name. The Darlington family is a family name. So Andrew Jackson is a bloodline. And then we also have one of the Bushes, that's a car driver, and the Newman car driver that is, that's in the bloodline, that's in my genealogy bloodline, also off of my mom's side of the family. Okay. As far as my mom's father's side, that's where it gets interesting. My great my great-great-grandmother is from Texas. Okay. Then my great-grandmother, Maddie Darlington, had two children, right? And one of them did pass away early, early right after birth. So I'm not familiar with too much information on that. But she did have another daughter named Blanche. Well, while Maddie Darlington, who passed away in Riverside County in Paris in 74, I believe it was, she was 103 years old. So at the time, she was the oldest person in Riverside County to pass away. And when she was pregnant with Blanche, she actually was on the stagecoach when Geronimo robbed the stagecoach and killed all the white men on the stagecoach. But he spared her because she was with child. And through research, thanks to my daughter, right, doing the, Apache Indian, research, come to find out, Geronimo actually had a lot of family that was killed by the white men, and they even took the lives of the pregnant women. So he knew what it was felt. I'm assuming he knew what it was felt like, so that's why he spared my great-grandmother's life. Well, now we're in Arizona. So Blanche is born, right? Move forward, we're in Arizona, Tombstone, Arizona. My grandmother, Blanche, was a saloon girl at the Birdcage Theater. And she hid out Jesse James and his brother, whatever his brother's name is, in the basement of her house. That's where the generation line on my grandfather's side starts getting pretty dark.
Okay.
I don't blame it on Maddie Darlington. I think it was just whatever evilness that Blanche got into being in Tombstone. So come to find out, she had a child out of wedlock. Her name was Jewel. Come to find out, when my grandfather when my grandfather was alive, he always thought Jewel was his aunt because Maddie raised her as Blanche's sister. Okay. But that wasn't true. That was Blanche's daughter.
Wow.
And so we found out that when Jewel died back in the early 80s, that Jewel was actually my grandfather's sister. Wow. So then so not only did she have Jewel out of wedlock, she also had my grandfather got pregnant with my grandfather by a gentleman named Haverty.
Okay.
We don't know who he is. We do know he's from Tucson, Arizona. We do know that he died in a mental institution in Tucson, Arizona. But moving forward, while Blanche was pregnant with my grandfather, she married a gentleman by the name of last name Weber, a good guy, right? He married Blanche only to give her child a name. He was a good guy, but Blanche wasn't a good woman. Okay, so she was very dark. A lot of the family members didn't like her. She died in 1973, right after I was born. And according to the journals that I have of my mom, she cursed the family pretty bad. She cursed my grandfather's family pretty bad. So it's just, that's where, a generational gap comes in. You know what I mean? With regards to the bad things that she had put in writing, the bad things that she had said about my family, if that makes sense.
Let me ask you something, because so people will understand, we're laying a foundation here. And as you know, the title of this interview is "You Don't Have a Voice." children should be seen but not heard. And
Mm-hmm.
talking with Tina, I kept hearing her say these things, and that's how I got the title. And then she says, people don't listen. One of the hardest things as a genealogy is tracking information, especially when it gets a little muddy and a little dark, and people do not want to share what things are in our bloodlines. But Tina's going to share more about her family and how this comes around to what she's experienced. And I applaud Tina for a voice. This is her coming out. This is her voice being shared. And she has some very important information to share and what to look for. So all of us have generational bloodline things, traits, and attributes that come through the family. And it's still until we start addressing and talking about these things so that we can, I always say the buck stops with me, because I am a faithful, dedicated prayer warrior. And I believe prayer stills most of all. When you sincerely seek God, prayer stills the enemy. And so, Tina, can you continue? When you say people don't listen, and as you go forward and you share and bring us to where you come in and why you say people don't listen. So if you can continue. Thank you, Tina.
Okay, so I'm going to start. Basically, I had a simple life. I remember being in diapers. I remember Christmases. I remember specific events. Things that children, like you remember your dress. I remember dancing around with the big headphones with my aunt, listening to the Eagles in the bedroom. You know what I mean? There's certain things that we remember. So I'm going to move to where I start kindergarten. Okay. My mom ends up being a supervisor at a company named Pyro 5, where they are building, the equipment that, the propane tanks, like, where where you put them on fire or whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The propane equipment, so anyhow, so there was, she was a supervisor there. Three of my aunts had worked with her. Excuse me, two of my aunts had worked underneath her. Well, now I'm here starting kindergarten, so my grandfather decides he's going to start babysitting me, right? Come over in the morning, 6 o'clock when my mom goes to work. I go to school about 8:30, and then the abuse started. That's when the abuse started. So my favorite ice cream back then was a snow cone. Okay. That was a way to influence me. You want to go get a snow cone after school? So a lot happened with that. And there should have been the signs, the wet and the, clothes at school in kindergarten. So, pee in the bed at night. Tearing out, the hair of my baby dolls. The sleepwalking, the dreams, the bad dreams. Okay, so that continued. And I lived in Paramount at the time, and that continued until second grade, so 2 years straight, halfway through second grade. And then my mom and had decided that, we're going to go ahead and move to Riverside County. So we ended up moving to La Quinta, California. My father was helping to build the Indian Wells Golf Course at the time. And so then here goes my grandparents moving out to La Quinta. Then here goes the abuse some more. All right. And so to make a long story short, that continued from the age of 5 to the age of 8. Okay.
Wow. Okay.
And whenever my mom was the oldest daughter, she had 2 older brothers ahead of me. She had 6 brothers in total, 3 sisters, so a total of 10 kids in my, that were siblings of my mom.
Mm-hmm.
That included my mom. So whenever my parents moved somewhere, my grandparents followed. Whenever my grandparents moved somewhere, my parents followed, right?
Okay.
So that kept the pattern of abuse going with my grandfather. Sad to say, from the time of 5, 6, 7 years old, it also happened with friends across the street. One time, my youngest uncle Joe had caught him with us, me and a friend, in the backyard, and he confronted my mom, and my mom didn't do anything about it. Right? So now I'm going to move to, I'm 7 years old, and now we're in Hesperia, California. Abuse is going on with me. I'm now to the point where I'm getting tired of it. So I am rebelling. I'm rebelling against my mom. I'm rebelling against him. I'm rebelling against my family. I'm getting in little fights. What kind of fight can a 7-year-old get into at school? But now I'm spending a whole bunch of time in the principal's office, right?
Okay.
And so next thing I know, we're staying at my grandparents' house because we're getting ready to have our house, get ready to move into our house from La Quinta back to Hesperia when I'm, or the first time to Hesperia when I'm 7. And here comes the police to the door. Well,
okay.
A memory like it was yesterday. I know the room. I know what they look like. I know what the police officers look like. A very, very vivid memory. And the female police officer is standing by the bedroom door and shuts the door. The male police officer is standing in front of me. I'm sitting on the edge of the bed. My mom comes in, sits down next to me. The male police officer asks me, "Has he ever touched you inappropriately?" I looked at him. I looked at the female officer. I looked at my mom. My mom had that look like, if you say one word, I'm going to kill you. Now, mind you, my mom had a temper. She had beat me black and blue with a belt. She had threatened me plenty of times. She had smacked me across the face growing up. She was physically abusive. She had her own anger issues, but she was my mom. And at the time, and I knew lying to the police was not okay because that's not the first time I had been questioned by the cops. When I was beat black and blue in kindergarten by my mom, I had a dress on, and of course back then we had to lay down and, take naps for, after lunch. And the teacher had seen the marks on my leg. Well, CPS did come out, and I remember that also, and I was truthful then, but I also told the police officer, yes, I did make my mom mad. Did I do these things? Wow. Yes, I did. Did I push her buttons? Yes, I did. Why? Because now I'm doing this rebellious thing, and nobody listened. Nobody understood why I was being rebellious. My parents didn't understand why the sleepwalking started, why the nightmares started, why I started pulling out my hair, right? Why I started pulling on my eyelashes. So I was truthful the first time, and it didn't get me anywhere. So now I'm 7 years old, actually lying to a police officer because I know that belt is going to hurt more than me lying to the police officer.
Okay.
So nothing happened. And for the longest time, probably up until last week, I carried that guilt because it continued to happen with friends. It continued to happen with neighborhood children. And there was a lot of repercussions that did happen from that. Okay. My father um, was a good financial provider, an excellent financial provider. But, he did enjoy his beer. You know,
Mhm.
we were upper middle class. So his life was pretty much paying the bills, working, and at the bottom of a beer case, you know.
Okay.
Um, his father did die when he was 10 years old. So maybe that's why he didn't have that like fatherly relationship. He knew how to
Mhm.
interact with children, right? Because he lost that with his father. And so my mom, being the oldest girl, pretty much raised her siblings to help. Of course, back then she was supposed to
Okay.
help her mom. So she was the authoritative figure. She wore the pants in the family. What I say goes.
Mm.
Well, finally, when I was 8 years old, we were in the car. Okay, let's go get a snow cone. Sorry, nope, I'm not going. This is not happening now. You can, and I told my grandfather, either you can take me home or I'm walking. And I would
Mm.
be walking from the railroad tracks. You know what
Wow.
I mean? So that's how it stopped.
Tina,
And
let me ask you this, because you've shared a lot of things, and I'm hoping the listening audience, this is resonating with those that are hearing what you're saying, because one of the things you had mentioned in our conversation was about patterns. So what do we look for? Because this is clear abuse, okay? And a lot of people don't know. I am a foster mom. I've adopted 3 kids. I've been doing this 18 years. And let me, as a former president in the Baltimore City foster parent resource, my phone rang 24/7 off the hook. You couldn't imagine the stories that I would hear. And here's another thing. I remember going to a convention. It was a support group. And I remember one of the seminars I took, and that had to deal with children that are in foster care system. And let me tell you, with any agency, government agency, they make you fill out paperwork, and I can guarantee you that paperwork is about 3 inches, and I'm literally mean 3 inches deep. And so one of the things that really stuck with me was this doctor saying that children that are aging out of foster care system, they don't even know why the children are in there. Okay, they can't put their hands on, but most of the children coming into the system are abused. And I think I shared with you about I was going to adopt this 13-year-old girl. And because of my position, I was able to be privy to some information. So I went to the center and I reviewed her paperwork. And at the time, I think I had just the boys. And at the age of 2, this little girl was sexually abused. Okay. She killed a puppy. She was deaf. She broke up so many hearing aids. She was in a family that was a married couple. There were issues that were created. It wasn't her fault, but what she experienced can you imagine? I can't even begin to imagine what you went through in kindergarten up until the age of 7. And so I looked at the file and I told the specialist there, I said, I can't bring her into my home as a single mom with 2 boys. She needed to be in a home with a single parent, preferably a woman. Okay. So what do we look for? Because I know this is happening, and this might be the first of many conversations that we have, because I can see where this is leading. I can see the handwriting on the wall about how we treat our children today is crucial, and the children are our future leaders. So tell me, what kinds of things do we need to look for and when we are raising children, or when we're in neighborhood settings? And I know we've seen things happen in our neighborhoods that looks a little bizarre, okay? And we want to say something, but we don't know what to say. Tell us, what do we look for?
Well, there's a lot of things. And you know what? I am a victim of incest. I'm a victim of physical abuse. I'm a victim of emotional abuse.
Hmm. Tina, you're muted. Can you unmute? Okay. Can you hear me? Let me say this. The information that Tina is sharing with us right now is very important. And this is the types of things that happen when they don't want us to know the truth. Tina, can you unmute yourself and share with us again what you were saying? Because it's very important that people hear what you're saying. So we're going to take this. If people can't hear, we want to hear this again. Okay?
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I lost. I couldn't hear. I couldn't see anything. I don't know what
okay.
happened. Sorry. Okay. So I want to say that it came out when I was 20. As an only child, I was able to sit and listen to the stories from my aunt and my mom. Come to find out, he had abused all of the kids,
wow,
including me. This is the thing. This is the thing. Children, when a child does something, I'm coming from both a victim and as a parent, okay? When children have any type of abuse with them, there will always be signs. They'll mark up their Barbie dolls or their baby dolls. They'll stay by themselves and isolate. Do whatever sexual, abusive, physically, scarring the babies, you know what I mean? When they play with themselves, whether it be with their baby dolls, their Barbie dolls, whatever. They don't sleep like they should. They'll start wetting their pants. They'll start acting out. They'll start sleepwalking. I also majored in psychology, before I went into criminal justice. And it was those classes in psychology that helped me realize that, wow, everything I went through was not normal. Because at the time, even though it didn't feel right, my entire life up until I was 20 years old, it was some type of normality, if that makes sense. Okay. Because we were never told it wasn't. And in the back of my mind, even though it felt not normal to me and it didn't feel right, in the back of my mind, when the police asked me, in my mind at 7 years old, it was still a normality, if that makes sense, why I would think that. But I do want to say I've come across so many children, especially being in the foster system, that have been abused. And I'm sorry, but half of those foster parents shouldn't be foster parents, because you know what? They don't listen to the kids either.
Wow.
And the children will act out in those foster homes, and the foster parents get angry with them and beside themselves, and then just decide that they're going to continue to abuse them. What? No, you just can't do that. There is a reason. And you know what? All of these social workers in the foster system, in CPS and Health and Human Services, all this stuff, I'm sorry, but they need a reality check when it comes down to their education. They need to realize what they are doing to these children, because they're doing it themselves. Are they being told to do it because it's their job? Probably, right? Are they turning people over because there's too many kids in the foster